What a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you're new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, but there's also a PayPal link in the info box below the video once it's rendered. Most importantly though, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by The Plain Truth, Sleeping Warrior,
Hola,
Ranty Flat Earth, who's not around, Mark Doxy, how you doing?
Hello, gentlemen.
Chocolate saying,
Yo, what's up, everybody?
and Arwin.
Yo, good afternoon.
Good to have you. Good to have you.
we do have the link given out to our newly acquired acquaintance. Forgotten his name.
Belief is a thief.
Thief is a
Belief is a thief. So he has the link. I'm hoping he makes an appearance because we'd like to scrutinize his most recent couple of videos. So if you are out there, Belief is a thief, please join. Let's have a conversation.
You going to run through the general housekeeping, Anthony, or do you want me to do it?
Well, I've got an answer to two of them, so you need to do it.
Fair enough. Any signs of curvature?
Yeah. Sly Sparkane claims that my recent videos have shown curvature, and he's been challenged to come on and present himself. And to this date, he hasn't done it.
Axial rotation, any signs of that, anybody?
Nope.
Pressurized system next to a vacuum?
Yeah, Red's Rhetoric's got that one sussed. He claims that gravity causes it, and the higher we go, gravity gets less and less, and eventually you end up in space.
Yeah, that doesn't really work, huh?
No, but he says it does.
Does he have any proof of that?
Right.
Yeah, well, he says, I don't know, I wouldn't like to speak for Reds. I'm sure he's more than capable of asserting his own position, but he does claim that we do have a pressurized system next to a non-pressurized vacuum of space.
That's really funny because gravity would have to be absolutely constant everywhere, non-material dependent, to be able to get anywhere close to
Yeah, I think
keeping
perhaps
all that gas together, because yeah, the gas will still expand in opposition to the entire open universe of space. But yeah, if gravity is not gonna be strong enough to keep it together, it will blow out immediately. Just like opening that hatch of your spaceship. It's very strong force.
Oh, no.
The need for gas to expand is very strong, so it needs to be opposed by an equally strong force. So gravity can't gradually lose its strength to be able to do that. It has to be universally present.
It doesn't do that, Arwin. It's only 14 psi less than the surface pressure on Earth. 14 psi is not a lot.
PSI. What does PSI mean? What does PSI mean?
It means pounds per square inch, moron.
Square inch of what? Nothing? Pounds per square inch of vacuum that it's pressing against? What the hell's going on?
Nothing. But
Where'd you get the pressure from? Where'd you get a PSI value? Well, it's from the walls of the container per square inch of the thing it presses against.
Well, I'm only telling you their arguments. I'm not speaking for Reds. I'm sure he will be more than competent at explaining this one. On that note, I'll swerve it because I don't want to try and put words in anybody's mouth here. But you get where I'm going. It's all about Reds. Doopy-doopy-doop.
Fair enough. What about R? Anybody seen any scientific evidence of R?
No. Oh, R.
Oh, well, it's just the self-perpetuating molten iron core, then, isn't it? That's the only other thing that they haven't presented. Self-perpetuating molten iron core. Any signs of that?
Oh,
Wait, I got evidence for R. You
Okay.
just have to look over the horizon, and then a ship will come over the horizon. There will be a pirate on it, and it's going to say R.
Okay, pirates aside, any actual scientific evidence of Earth radius?
No.
You would need a curve for that, right?
Although actually, I was thinking about this the other day. I'm getting a bit of feedback. Who's feeding?
Nathan.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this. Like, in fact, actually, what I'll do is rather than to put words in the mouths of ballers, I'll mention this off air privately with Nathan, because I don't want to like say something that they can pick up on and then use against me. I'd rather say it in private, in context, and then it won't be taken out of context publicly by people like Sean Gifford, because he's an idiot. He can't cite people correctly at all. So I'd rather not say it publicly.
Right.
So
that
where were we?
That concludes our housekeeping, I'm pretty sure. Unless there's anything you guys could think of.
Molten Iron Core. It's Ruhif. Not Ruhif. What's his face? Paul Voigt. He's the one that's got the claim for the Molten Iron Core.
Well, where is he? I've got a bit of feedback. It's not me. I noticed my gate was completely closed when you said that, so it's someone else on the panel. Try and mute if you're not talking.
Well, I can see Arwin's levels are bouncing up and down.
Me?
Yeah.
No, me.
Just generally.
Well, you were making noise, then I could see your levels bouncing up and down. So perhaps it might have been you that was feeding back. I don't know.
Yeah,
but...
it was Nathan feeding back that time.
Well, anyway.
Anyway.
So where do we go with today then? Are we going to look at the bulge still and focus on the bulge, or are we going to move towards the hidden value, which of course would be the curvature of the Earth, which we do not see? Where should we go?
I mean, I'm happy to stick with the bulge a little bit longer while there's confusion and people like Belief is a Thief saying, well, look, I can look out with a tree in the distance and the horizon doesn't obscure anything. What do you know? It's like, yeah, okay, that's because we would assert that it's a flat plane. So unless you're about to presuppose an R value and tell us that it mathematically works out, that's kind of bullshit. We actually need to see demonstrations of an obstruction. That's why these guys don't seem to get it. There's a hidden value, right? Well, it's only hidden because there's something in the foreground obstructing it, right? So all these guys that say, oh, no, there's no wall in the way. Oh, right, well, what's causing the obstruction then? What's hiding the target in actual sizes, of course, not perspective inclusive? So, yeah, there is a wall in the way. And we're saying that wall is considerably bigger than you give it credit for because you don't account for perspective.
So if you just present my screen, Nath, let's just go back to the basics on this. Let me know when we're good.
Yep.
So if we go with like a 30-mile observation, and recently we've been going down to say a foot in observer height, we can see that according to some people, believe that the middle of the bulge, the halfway point of the bulge, is where the horizon is. And if that was the case on a 30-mile observation, that value would read 15. But obviously it doesn't. It reads 1. So it's either the horizon isn't the middle of the bulge the way that they tell us. It's actually the case that the horizon is kind of like, I can't really get it any closer. It's about there. That's as close as I can get it. The horizon is here. That would mean we would never, ever see a bulge. So technically, our position is that the horizon would be the bulge on the model. But actually, it should actually be the horizon, because anything behind the horizon, basically, we'll never see the bulge, the crest of the bulge, because the horizon, according to their model, well, according to the maths, the geometric sphere that we live on, the horizon is only 5% of the distance. So in theory, what this means, or in reality, what this should mean, is that 5% of the distance to the target is the horizon. That is the wall of water. That is the bulge. We can't even see the bulge because the horizon should be in the foreground. So the question becomes, what do we see first? Do we see the horizon at like 5% of the distance, or do we see the crest of the bulge? But either way, we ain't seeing no target down here because it's way behind and way dropped behind the curve of the Earth. So the question becomes, is it the top of the bulge, the crest of the bulge? This is the way that Belief is a Thief claims it is. Or is it actually the horizon, which on the curve, if we live on a sphere, it has to be. Every point thereafter, we're seeing, well, behind the curve. So if the horizon is here, then we're never going to see the bulge, because look where the bulge is. And I'm trying to do it so that it's like 5%. It's difficult to do because it's not to scale, which isn't really anybody's fault, but that's 50%. So 25 is kind of there. So 10% is kind of, it's about 5%. That's about right. But whatever goes on, there ain't no help. Unless the target is absolutely huge, we ain't seeing it in no hidden. So what do we see in the top of the pictures that we all take pictures of? Is it the horizon or is it the bulge?
This entire thing is completely superfluous because
this is
they
their
are
model.
already admitting that it is looming up and you don't actually see this. So all of this modeling, this autographic globe-like modeling, the only purpose it serves is to gauge theoretically where the object is supposed to be on a ball, because it doesn't actually work with optics, because it does not account for the looming factor, which basically negates the entire model aspect of it. So it's completely it's only a theoretical system to imagine where it is supposed to be on the ball and behind how much curve it is supposed to be, but you never see it like that because it's all looming.
This is their model, Arwin. So if this is their model,
but it's only it doesn't work for the actual site, and they have pretty much already admitted to this.
Well, let me finish, Arwin, because if it's their position that the horizon is, let's go back to that. The horizon is supposed to be on a 30-mile observation, which is what, this one was at 34. So let's put it in 34 miles. The observer height was, what was it? 100 feet, something not far off of that. So we've got, we have the horizon is 12 miles away. Okay. So are they telling me that this black line that looks like a hard horizon is only 12 miles away? So if this is 12 miles away, that would mean, so then we do 12 miles divided by the 34. It's just less than half, isn't it? So let's try and do it per scale. It might not be that easy to do. So 12 of 34 is 12, 24, 30. It's just under a third, isn't it? So in this instance, because of the elevation, we want to put that up a little bit higher to about there. So what they're saying is that the horizon we see is about a third of the distance. It's a bit close, a bit lower, and then the rest of it, we don't even see the crest of the bulge. The crest of the bulge isn't there. And then the rest of it starts falling away. But look at how much that height is there and that hidden. Now, this is relatively to scale, and the mountain that we're looking at is not that tall. So once we reduce the height of the mountain as a function of distance, the whole thing's going to fit into that massive area there because of perspective. So it's like we're not even seeing the crest of the bulge. The horizon, they say, is the thing that we're looking at, not the crest of the bulge. The crest of the bulge is somewhere below it because we're looking down on their model. Apparently, that's the position at the minute, as I understand it.
Yeah, they call the horizon the crest of the obstruction. In other words, the thing that's blocking the thing in the distance is Earth as you look down upon it, and between you and the target, when you draw a line and get yourself a little slice of Earth, you've got a bulge between you and the target. So it's dropped to your feet a considerable distance, and then a bulge is raised up between you and it, and that bulge is represented in the photography by the horizon. Therefore, it's the horizon in your picture that's actually obscuring things if you're basing it on being on a globe Earth, which we're not. What we see is a point of convergence in the distance. That's what we actually see, which is a term that you would use if you were describing things in a perspective context. So flat Earth fits nicely and is, as Arwin puts it, Occam's razor. It's the simplest explanation to accept. You see it because it's there and you're seeing very far on that day and you've got a point of convergence. Whereas with them, they say, well, let's exclude perspective altogether, take us away from the actual observation in the photograph, put it inside for you, and then see how much geometrically would be obscured if you had a direct line of sight. We'll ignore all viewing angles and then basically tell the person that's using it that what they see in terms of perspective in their photography is actually Earth curvature. It isn't. If you wanted to reverse engineer the curve calculator, what you'd probably end up with is a very handy perspective calculator.
Riley, Belief is a thief is in the chat, and he's saying that you're probably playing this video out of context.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, man. You'll have to either speak up or Nathan turn you up, but you're like 1 out of 10, and I've got a fan in the background because it's roasting.
He's on full.
But Belief is a thief is in the chat, and he's addressing what you're saying about his
Belief
video.
is a thief. You have a mess. Go to your YouTube creator content, creator studio, then click community and messages. You'll find a link in there. Come and join us. Interesting that thief is in his name.
Or
Anyway.
just click the link in the info box.
Rob the Thief, do you want to join us?
Rob, really?
About 31, 30-ish. It's hot today. Really hot. I'm sat here in my undies. That's how hot it is.
It's silly that a guy named Rob would call himself a thief.
Rob the Thief.
You know what robbing is, right?
Listen, he's not doing that. He's saying that belief is a thief of knowledge, right? If you say I believe something, that's the whole thing that we're doing in the truth community is that we want to say that it's not that we simply believe something. So he's saying belief is what robs you of arriving at the truth. That's what his name means.
Is he your friend?
Yeah, like no, but that's what I understood straight away when Nathan first published his first video, and I watched it, and he was talking about angular curvature and belief is a thief. That's what made sense to me. I mean, I could be wrong, but that's what I took it as.
You're kind of taking it in the context of like belief is the enemy of knowledge or something like that.
Right.
I just see it as a handle.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with believing, but it is wrong if you then use that belief as a part of knowing. You're going to presume something.
Exactly why they say
like
belief
R,
is the enemy of knowledge.
RG.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's the benefit of the doubt that I'm. That's the benefit of the doubt that I'm giving him. So.
I'll just come in here and
Believing
explain
in possibilities.
yourself,
There's
Rob.
nothing wrong with that. So often you have to believe in something to get anywhere. See? As long as you just don't assume it is the absolute truth without proof. But belief is what can lead you to new frontiers.
Well, we're told.
Information
but
to
once you get to that knowledge, if your belief is strong enough that even that new information or whatever you just learned is not strong enough to overcome that belief, I think that's where the belief problem is a problem. I mean, isn't that the problem we're having with the Glovers? They believe in this curve and this R and all this stuff that we can't verify, we can't see, we can't find, and they believe it. You know.
But then belief becomes an anchor to drag you down.
Yeah. Problem.
He's ranty around.
He still hasn't unmuted. I think he's still AFK.
Okay.
Might be worth running back through. In the absence of Ranty with his evidence for the horizon, I think what I'll do is I'll present mine for the horizon and see if he gets back. So on that note, let's go to my channel, videos. Right, so let's move chat out of the way a minute. Let's open up this. All right, so this video, am I presenting, by the way, Nath?
Yep.
Ah. All right, so this goes back to the Isle of Man thing from a while back. I was challenged to go back to the beach and get it. And you can see that you've got North Barul on the land. There's like a half sunset thing there. And then it tapers down and drops into the water. Now, if I didn't get the land on the far right-hand side, the argument would obviously be that the horizon has risen up and we're only seeing this corner bit. We saw that with Al-K and we saw that with No Simon Dan. That's what they did. They basically pulled it up to there, regardless of any distortion. And we see that this thing called flattening or whatever, squashing at the horizon is a thing. And it's the importance is that when this land appears, which is only about 300 feet, this land pins this horizon to the same point on the left-hand side. If this land isn't there, then the argument will be 50-50. It could go either way. You wouldn't know. So when I went back to the beach to try and get that footage, at the request of Slice Barcane, who will not accept that we see that same land that he asked me to go get, he will not accept it. So, I mean, that tells you a lot. Let's get rid of that. So initially, when I first started taking the footage, I didn't recognize the land, even though I was looking at it and I knew it, because it looks flat. Now, the argument is that the horizon rises. So I went back over to Barul, spotted Barul. There's the sun bit, comes down, and then basically I get to the point where the water goes into here, and it does kind of look like the horizon's risen. It looks like it might be curved. But the issue was, do I get the land on the right-hand side? So I'm looking carefully for the land on the right-hand side, and hey, what do you know? There it is. So when I see it, I zoom right in on it, and I can see the land that's only 200 to 300 feet. It should be 700 feet behind the curvature of the earth, and we should not have a direct line of sight with it, and I can see it. Now, this is lay on my belly on the beach, and I have got filters applied here at this point. Contrast is high, brightness is low, just so that you can pick out the distance, the difference between the land and the background, because it is quite muggy this day. It's not great visibility. It was just an average day. So I realized that I need to go back over to the gap, see whether I've got the land on the other side, and does it look the same color and tone? Look at the tone of the land there. It's like this dark bluey grey color. And I'm looking for the same kind of land again, so that it wasn't a fluke, to see whether or not I am actually seeing land. And then when I get back over to the other side, there it is. And you can see it right in the middle of the picture. So this is the land that's only 200 feet in height, 200 to 300 feet. It does peak out at 315 at the tippy tops of it, but we're not seeing the tippy tops of it. We're seeing, well, a big chunk of it. So when I realized that the dog's kind of going to, that was the dog that was interrupting with the camera. I realized he was going to try and piss on me or something. So I moved the camera away, got up. But this is what I did. I wanted to show how I caught this footage. I mean, you can see how not good it was visibility-wise. But I got on the driest part of the sand. I wasn't prepared to get in the gloopy sand. The tide had only just left. And you can see that I recorded it, well, short of digging a hole, it was as low as I can get it. And that land shouldn't be seen if we live on a sphere. All of it should be behind the curve. But how this relates to the horizon point is when I get to this point here, well, mind you, we can do it with any parts of this, to be honest. When I get to, yeah, we'll go to the lower part. So we'll go to the part where I zoomed it in. So when we get to the point where, which is now, and then I zoom in, on the curve calculators, you can see the land. This is like 34 miles away. So let me go back to the curve calculators and I'll bang this in and then see what happens. Why is this not doing it? So the curve calculator was 34 miles, but this time my observer height, well, we'll go with flat earth maths, 9 feet, which clearly it wasn't, but we'll go with 9 feet anyway. So the horizon is only meant to be 3 miles away, okay? So in the actual footage, 3 miles, that represents that hard water line apparently at 3 miles. So if that's 3 miles, let's try and put that into some kind of scale on the thing below, which basically gives us the observer height would be basically there. So what I mean, it's ridiculous. And so that would be the eye level, which would be the thing. The horizon would be the water line, but then everything else that's falling away on that would be falling behind the curve of the earth. So this thing, this whatever you call it, this the land that we were looking at has to be that size relative to the size of the gap. Now, at the end of the day, when this thing's reduced in size because of angular perspective, because of angular resolution, it falls very quickly into it. I mean, it'll probably fall into it around about here somewhere. It'll be completely gone. But by the time it gets all the way down here, it's tiny. It's well fallen into the hidden valley completely. There's no way you're going to be bringing this back. You need to bend the light to follow the shape of the earth, not to be like following it on this weird slanty thing. But even this model is supposed to be just 3 miles away. So you have to ask yourself the question, does it look like it's 3 miles away when I'm zooming right in on it? And it's, I mean, does it look like it's 3 miles away when we're there? Does it balls? It look, whatever it looks like, it's like 20, 30 miles away. It looks consistent with what you see. It looks the way it looks. Doesn't look like 3 miles away. The horizon is clearly closer on the curve calculator than it is in real world. That's supposed to be the obstruction. Well, we don't really even see any obstruction. Anyway, still kind of waiting for belief is a thief.
Yeah, there is no bulge. We just see
No bulge.
We just
massive
see
amounts of hidden. Perspective is a thing.
Exactly. Blocking your view. Nothing's looming up from beyond your vision. None of it's holograms.
I think the other thing to remind people as well is that the disclaimer that I gave right at the beginning does apply. Not everybody gets it straight away. And it took us a while for us to be able to even formulate the opposing argument because I didn't really know what words to say. And initially, there were people that didn't get it. And I think people will hold their hands up and say that they didn't get it. But now the people are not getting it still, and it's been rammed down their throat sideways, and they still pretend that they don't get it and argue against it. And you can't argue against this stuff. Things do get smaller over distance. If you're going to show it in side view, you have to reduce the size of targets because of perspective. So it no longer becomes an orthographic view. It becomes a side view incorporating perspective. That's what it is. That's what it's supposed to be. And you guys that deny this are just idiots.
And what's crazy, like I was telling Arwen before, like it's crazy that we've had to bring it down to such a basic level of telling people that your hand or your thumb can obfuscate what you're seeing in front of your face. It's like
obscure,
and people are
don't
arguing
do an
that.
M. Scott Veach.
Yeah, I'm sorry, obscure.
M. Scott Veach kept saying that. Sorry, Chocolate. M. Scott Veach kept saying that the bulge was obfuscating things. Well, it's obscuring things. Obfuscation is a tactic to stop people
Yeah, but
talking.
Right.
What was worse, and I mean this with love, deep inside the rabbit hole, if you're listening, but he started using that word interchangeably as well because M. Scott Veach was using it. So it was like almost like, well, what's the word? Is the word obfuscate or is the word obstruct? And of course, the word's obstruct. So shout out to Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole.
Okay.
Sorry.
But yeah, like no, it's okay. And yeah, so like that's an argument that we've had to go back to, and people are actually arguing that. Like I don't understand how people are not understanding that perspective is a thing. Like why is that even an argument
at
at this
other
point?
graphic views for so long, staring at that, so that
But like Nathan says, you don't ever
it becomes
see.
the way they think.
Yeah, but you don't ever. I've never taken a picture and then saw my side of my face in my picture with the camera that I'm taking the picture with. Like that's just silly. I don't know. And they base everything on that view. It's just weird.
Yeah, it is true that things do get smaller over distance. Now, obviously, we're not saying that they get actually smaller. They obviously get apparently smaller. So don't try and derail the point with a semantic point that nobody disagrees with. We're not saying that they get smaller because of the actual size changing. They just get apparently smaller, and that needs to be considered. It needs to be taken into effect when the application of the refracted hidden value is given, and nobody does it. Why? Because we weren't told to. So the Metabunk curve calculator does need to tell us with a disclaimer that objects in the distance appear smaller than they actually are, because that's the bit that tells us that perspective is a thing. So there are some that say, oh, well, you've got to admit that the curve calculator is right then. It's just the way it's being applied that's wrong. No, the curve calculator is not right. The curve calculator needs to tell people that things in the distance appear bigger than they actually are, because perspective is a thing, and it doesn't do that. And it allows ballers to dishonestly apply the refracted hidden value against the absolute target heights. And as Rumpus would not move from the other day, they need the absolute height to be in there. They cannot move from that. It has to be absolute. Otherwise, the curve calculator never matches anything ever again, which, of course, is the position it should be if we live on a sphere, because we should see things dropping behind curve. We don't even see boats going behind curve. We see boats getting destroyed by atmospheric or optical or whatever effect, but none of which appears to be curvature. And it's not true to say that any obstruction is curvature, because there are other things that cause obstruction, like waves. Ranty showed that a little splash right in front of the camera was enough to wipe out a whole building of 100-odd feet. Well, that's not really acceptable when it comes to a boat that seems to be disappearing over the curve. It has to be in the right place at the right time, or it ain't curvature, and that's not what we're seeing.
Yep.
So I'm wondering why Belief is a Thief is not in here, given that he knows that his link's there for him. He knows that we're not putting the link out publicly. He knows that we're waiting for him. He's here by invite. I think he might be a bit victim hurt, Nathan, because of the title of the show.
It is out publicly. It's always out publicly.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, so he's had both. I did say that earlier.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Sorry.
Is this? Did you call the show Summit Dodgy?
Called it Fake Flirth.
Yeah, Fake Flirth. So come on, Fake Flirth. In you come. It's funny because if you claim to be flat Earth, right, and you don't get this, then you need to either go back to school or admit that you're not actually flat Earth.
We've watched your latest video, Horizon Heist. You know I have. I've commented on it, and you've replied to me.
I haven't watched it. Do you want to tell us about it, Nathan, or is it not really that worth it?
Well, he's in the chat. There's a link publicly. And he said, can I come in? Am I welcome? And I've said at the time 317 times that all are welcome. Just click the link. You don't need to ask. So if you're not flat or baller, why are you telling me that you're on my side? You know, do I need to lift that quote? So you're a liar about that as well? Belief is a thief? You quote, I'm on your side. So you're not on my side then, like I said. Right, you're just a liar.
He can't be on your side. If he was on your side, he would be like passive in his criticism, because I don't always agree with people on stuff, and I say privately, carefully, respectfully that I don't agree with you on stuff. I don't come out and blasé make videos that are like deliberately the opposing view and pretend that I'm on your side. I'll speak quietly and I'll say, hey, maybe there may be other explanations for this. That's not what somebody that disagrees with you within FE does. And further to that point, if somebody does disagree with you within FE, that puts it puts a constraint on the person that's receiving the criticism to act in a particularly strong way. And the strong way to act is the way that it takes what's said on board, thinks about it carefully, and then acts on it in some way. And usually it'll be back down and remove the video. You don't want the video of disinformation out there when a fellow flat earther has questioned it. And you've been questioned by numerous people now, and you're still pushing it. So why is it that you're criticizing us for like whatever, but actually your videos are still up? Come on, there needs to be explanations here. There needs to be some concessions. And there's 3 videos that's like ready to go. I've only done 2 of them. I was hoping to get the 3rd one done, but there are mistakes in your video.
Okay, see you later, guys. Yeah, right. So, I mean, the issue with the most recent video was essentially the 3rd issue to date. So it's not like we're just picking on him. So he made one video that was completely biased and had the obstruction attached to the target while we're detailing that we've got a horizon that's a mile away. And, you know, that was his first attempt, and I pointed out that it was incorrect in a very friendly way. And then the second video, 2 for 2, completely did the same thing, which is what Anthony made his video about today, purely about the second video that he's made. And then today he made a nice model showing a curve with a piece of wood bending, and it all looked very complicated. Started really well. Then he transitions to a flat model and starts talking about how the perspective lines drag out. I'm like, all right, okay, you're doing this on a flat board, okay. Then he transitions outside to a presumably flat piece of grass, looks at the tree in the distance which is at the horizon and says, well, it's not being blocked by the line. And I'm like, well, there's a piece of grass between you and the target, which would represent a bulge, which is an obstruction between you and the target. And in this picture, there's no obstruction. You're literally just representing perspective and saying there's no obstruction. You're like, well, no, because you haven't got anything in your foreground, which would represent the bulge in a globe model. Where is it? Oh, it doesn't exist. Then he moves on to the same thing. So he does an observation over water and lies and said there's absolutely nothing breaking this line. And as he zooms in and out, there's these buoys floating around, and they dice the horizon. They intersect the horizon. In other words, they're higher than the midpoint, what we're calling the convergence line. And what do you know? They block about 50 foot of the land behind, and they're about 4 inches in height above the water, or above the convergence point, rather. So, like, that perfectly illustrates our point. There's something small. We're not talking feet or hundreds of feet in the case of the bulge. We're talking about a few inches above the midpoint in the near foreground, and it blocks out a significant amount of the land behind. While he's saying, nah, man, the horizon doesn't ever block anything. It's like, yeah, that's our point. You're telling us that's the reason you don't need to include perspective. And then you label it the reasons why you do need to include perspective in the calculator, and then you end up making your point about the horizon. And it's like you've just done a bait and switch. It's just cheap. It's the 3rd time he's done it. The guy's completely disingenuous. I've now labelled him a liar, because in his video, literally as something is intersecting the horizon, he says, I'm looking for something, but all I see is the line. It's like, no, you don't. You see a buoy intersecting the line, blocking 50 foot of the land behind because of perspective. You liar. So there we go. That's belief is a thief. Wouldn't normally pay any attention to that sort of person. However, 3rd time's a charm. You know what I mean?
Nathan, if you present my screen again, mate, I just want to show a couple of people why we're taking quite a heavy-handed approach to the guy. On his video of a week ago, I did see the video originally, and I just thought I'd comment on it. But basically, you can see he's pinned my comment from a week ago. Great video. Why don't you present this on the show today? This is a week ago, and see if it stands up to scrutiny publicly. And I wanted to challenge it because this is really now, today's the work that I wanted to do a week ago. And he says, thanks for the invite. I'll see if I can make it, but certainly one evening. Well, he was in chat a minute ago, but a week ago, he was like, he'll try. And I said, there are 3 things wrong with your video. No room. There is no doubt, no room for debate. You do have it wrong. I may address it on today's show, but I can assure you numerous errors. Anyway, we had a bit of a back and forth. And then again, this is all a week ago. I said, perhaps if you could look into that maths form, why it's almost the total opposite of your point. And I was making the point about the horizon. The horizon is like 5% of the 30-mile distance. So I said, look into the maths for why it's almost the opposite of your point. 30 miles should have the bulge at 15 miles, and certainly not just 5% of the distance. You defended the curve calculator, and I'm asking you to explain mathematically why that is. There is a mathematical explanation for this, and it's glaringly obvious. In other words, we don't live on a sphere. Would you look into the mathematical reason why it's wrong and then come back to me? That was a week ago. Nice and polite. Nothing. But since a week ago, rather than coming back to me like I'd nicely asked for, he's gone and then done. So how long? 1 week ago. So there's the week ago video. He's done another video, and then a 13-hour ago video called the Horizon Heist, and then another one which is just for me. So thanks very much for the attention. But on the other hand, I did ask you a week ago to address this, and you ignored it, and then done videos subsequent. All right, you have only done this one in the last 12 hours, or in the last hour, and then this one's 13 hours ago. But you did follow these videos up. So I'm not being heavy-handed with you because of like just being a dick. I'm being heavy-handed with you because I asked you to do something and basically explain yourself, and you didn't do it. And it went ignored. And I just think that if you're going to like support the Metabunk curve calculator, regardless of what side of the fence that you're on, and make assertions that support it when it's clearly wrong, then you have to at least explain yourself when challenged. And you had the challenge and you didn't get back to me. So you've had the link for today and you haven't joined today. And, you could have stood your ground. Then you could have dealt with these things. And it might have been that I got it wrong and made it, back down a little bit. But I suspect that it's probably not the case. And I think that you've got it wrong because this angular thing that you did is clearly wrong. So, I agree with Nathan. The guy's he's a charlatan.
Can you go to the Horizon Heist one and just click on the timestamps? So if you find my comment, and then just click on the timestamps that I've put in there for each of the... I've put 2 comments in, but...
So just click the link there, yeah?
Yeah, make sure it's paused, and then just click on the timestamp. Each one.
Okay, so 10... So
just click the timestamp, click the actual number in the comment, and it will take you straight there. There should be a blue number, right?
Yeah, 10.
Okay, let's put you up. So this is him saying, well, this is the horizon, and it's not obscuring any of the tree. That's his point. And I say to him, well, unfortunately for you, there's a blade of grass. Height above the convergence point is about 2 millimeters, and it's blocking about 1 foot of the tree. Why? Well, because of perspective. That's why. Simple as. You've got something higher than the line of convergence, which in your picture, if you just pop it back on, is this the second one?
I don't know whether it's the second one, but it's a point I wanted to make.
Well, so give me a second. There's one more I want to make. If you can click on the other timestamp in a second. Just keep it on screen for a second, Anthony.
Well, let me get the other timestamp.
Okay.
Is it in that thread?
It's a separate comment.
So it's not there.
Really?
Oh, he might have deleted it. If I minimize that, hide them ones. It doesn't. Oh, no, I don't see any more other comments than that. Is
that so? Oh, let's get to the bottom of this while we.
So what was it? Now I want to know what the other one was.
Me too. I'll have to look it up anyway just to find the timestamp. So,
well, I'll tell you what. While you're looking that up, let me just address this.
Well,
point.
No, I'm there already.
Okay, what's the timestamp?
It's the top comment for me. So he's obviously removed it because one of my comments is there. So 12:06 is the timestamp, and I'll read my comment while you're getting to it. 12 minutes 6 seconds, and his quote from his video is, "All I could see is the line." And then my comment is, except when a small object, the floating marker, obscured around 50 feet of the land behind it due to perspective. I'll take a few stills from your video and hand your ass to you on today's show. You are now labelled a liar. Because in essence, are you there? Yeah, you are. Here we go. What do you know? Something in the near foreground. It's got a very small amount of it. You may have to play it because it bobs up and down. You know, but ultimately speaking, this is something teeny tiny, and it's bobbing up and down in the near foreground. Just go back. Sorry, a couple of seconds. There you go. So this thing periodically dices the midpoint, like a wave would do. But obviously, they don't account for waves. They don't account for anything in terms of perspective.
And just to add to that, right at the beginning, he calls this the horizon heist. Well, that means that you're kidnapping the horizon, or you're doing something adverse with the horizon. And he's trying to claim that we're saying that this is the horizon. No, we're not. We're calling this the bulge because that's what it's called on the model. But the bulge is also should be the horizon on the model. You even said it yourself in the previous video, the horizon is the bulge. Now, there is a difference between the horizon and the bulge, but there really shouldn't be on a sphere, because the horizon should be the bulge. It's the point where everything gets highest, and you should be able to see the crest of it. But you're saying that we're heisting it. No, what we're saying is that there is a difference between the model and real world, because the model, when you're this low to it, puts the horizon about a mile away. Well, a mile is kind of like where these, well, I don't, you can guess, we can play guess where it is. But what's then accounting for the rest of the height that's here? Because are you trying to say that this is like the bulge for the curvature? Because if it is, all of this landscape starts falling behind it and getting smaller as it does so. So we're not seeing the elevation drop behind no curve. Yeah, we are seeing everything rise up to the horizon, but that's consistent with a plane and something called perspective. But this is all supposed to be dropping behind. So where's the drop value and where's the reduction in size to calculate how much there should be behind the drop? Because if this is the bulge at 5% of the distance, well, whatever this distance is on this occasion, it's going to be behind it. This looks quite close because it's quite big. You can see the departments. So it's going to be behind it by a little tiny amount on this one. It wouldn't be a great example. But he's claiming that we're heisting the horizon. No, we're asking why is there a discrepancy between the horizon, which is, well, I don't know.
Well, we're being accused of their digressions, as is typically the case when you've got a reasonably smart enemy. They actually accuse you of the very thing they're doing. Well, this baller is saying that we are heisting the horizon. No, the horizon, which we see and is a point of convergence and is by its very nature an apparent thing, it's not a physical thing, that has been co-opted and called a bulge. And it's utter nonsense. It's not a bulge. The only effects we see are perspective-based effects, and if you calculate them into a sphere model of Earth, you very quickly realise that everything should be obscured by this bulge by virtue of perspective, which they exclude from their calculations. Did you want to go, Armin? You've got something sharing. Did you want me to put you up?
Yeah, I updated my
your eyeball on a stick.
Yeah, it now has a stick, but yeah, I updated it to include the several effects that are present in all observations. At first, the distinction between the field of view and the compacted view. And the compacted view is always present in a small band, relatively. In the field of view, things narrow down up to the horizon. Because, you're basically not looking straight at it. You're looking up towards it or down towards, depending on its height in relation to the observer. Eventually, it'll all narrow down into that compacted view. And within the compacted view, there's a certain zone, the circle of confusion, where the miraging and the distortion happens in all kinds of ways. It's not always the same, but it's always in that specific zone where it happens. There is an optical slant from the obstruction in the foreground, which starts when the field of view ends. And you can always see that whatever is obstructing things way in the distance, even in the photograph that was presented right now before this, that those waves were clearly at a scale that proves that they are much closer than the objects in the background, which were very small in comparison. So it is the beginning of the optical slant where things don't narrow down due to the field of view anymore, but they do still get smaller due to perspective, and that causes obstruction from the foreground. Now those two effects are there. You have the field of view narrowing down, you have the optical slant that obstructs things beyond that point in a compacted view, you have the miraging effects that distorts things, and then you eventually end up with the obstruction from lack of air clarity. And that was double up proven by Jaren's video, or I think, well, that was the source at least, of the mountains being lit up by the daylight when the sun comes behind it, negating the effects from the lack of air clarity, which before that point make everything completely invisible in the far background. So that concludes the entire effects, the entire range of effects of all vision.
Hello, boys.
So,
You. What's up, Alan?
any questions?
No, I pretty much get it.
Nope. Clearly not.
But do you agree,
So-
disagree? Do you think I missed something? Or are you just so staggered by my intellect?
We're all just dumbfounded by your
All right.
intellect that we've
That's
been
good enough.
flawed intellectually, Arwin.
That's good enough for me. Anyway,
So Nathan, this guy is still in the chat, and he's saying he wants to come in, but he doesn't want to be regarded as an enemy. And I'm just telling him to just come in to explain himself. Like, doesn't
He wants to
be
come in,
an
but
enemy.
what?
But he doesn't want to be regarded as an enemy to you guys. Like,
Oh, don't come in then. I mean, what makes you think that you should get any concessions when Mick West wanted concessions and didn't get any? Are you not man enough to stand up for what you've asserted in your video?
I don't
trying
think
to
he
get him
wants
to do.
concessions. I think he doesn't want attacked.
Well, he's making assertions that he's a flat earther, and B, the metabump curve calculator is right. Well, I'm sorry, but if you're a flat earther and you get something that's massively wrong like that, and it attracts attention, then you deserve the retribution that you get, because it's called scrutiny. It's called peer review, right? And Nathan and I have given you, like, I gave you a week to do something, and in that week you did nothing and then carried on reasserting the position. And, well, we felt that it was about time that you got brought to attempt. So, like, let's...
Well, let me just maybe again. I'm just trying to be the nice guy, I guess. You know, could there have been, you know, circumstances where he didn't respond to you that wasn't his ignoring you? You know what I mean? Because I think you're taking it like he's ignoring you.
Yeah.
But there could have been extenuating circumstances, and he never got it, or yada yada
We can make
yada.
it a story if you want and call it a just so story.
Depending
or
on
we could
whether or
just
not
ask him when he
he's-
comes in.
Depending
Yeah,
on
yeah, sure.
Depending on whether or not he's edited out my comments that aren't, you know, favourable, which it seems
Well,
to be the case.
right. So that's all of it, right? We just ask him, and if he says yes or no, then we have
No,
to
not
take
at
him
all.
at
You
face
just go and have a
value.
look. Just go and have a look at his videos. So the first video he brought out, I was very complimentary of. You know, he says there's also a tilt that we need to account for. Check. I agree. Brilliant video. Next video, he says no, we don't need to account for perspective because looky here, I've attached a obstruction to varying targets, and as I move away from them, nothing changes. I'm like, oh right, so M. Scott Veitch's point then, basically. You're making the exact same point M. Scott Veitch made, and you're just being totally disingenuous with this curve that should be blocking the view. So I said, pointed it out, and he said, oh, nothing gets past you. I'm like, yeah, can you do it properly then? And so far, he constantly misrepresents it. You know, he's got to be doing it intentionally by the third video.
I had to stick him on mute because he was opening containers and generally making noise. Every time he does it, it cuts the gate, so Nathan gets interrupted.
I like the idea that
Oh, sorry about that, Anthony.
Nathan and Riley are peer reviewing things.
Well, we're all peer review. We're all scientists, right?
You're
In
a
our own-
scientist.
we're scrutinizing things.
In our own
We don't
way.
have a peer review system.
In our own way, we're all scientists. But not only that, though,
No, we're not.
wouldn't you guys expect us to call out flat earthers that we're deliberately doing stuff completely wrong? I mean, at least people that, like, for example, Arwin says that some of the things that he says are based on like his mind, and he says that. No, I don't mean that in a bad way. What I'm saying is he disclaims it, right? But this guy claims to be a flat earther, but then makes representations that support the Metabunk curve calculator that's clearly wrong. And we owe it to flat earthers to call this guy out to make sure that he's getting this right?
Yeah. I hear exactly what you and Nathan are saying. I totally hear it, and I totally understand where you're coming from. I'm also, though, looking at his responses where he's almost shocked and taken aback that he's being questioned this way. So in my mind, he's either completely being disingenuous and being a shill by pretending to be shocked, or he's legitimately confused. And if it were me, I might say, yeah, I'm talking out my ass because I really don't know what I'm saying. And I'm, you know what I mean? So
or maybe he is secluded.
Well, my prediction was
if
that
you
he would come
stumble on
and-
flat Earth and just like do it all on your own and just like dream about stuff and don't actually pay attention to other flat earthers and what they're working on, yeah, you're gonna come across quite confused at times. That could also be the case, that he's just relatively concluded.
Yeah, but
No,
the other
I
thing
think
is,
he's not.
this would
though.
all be ironed out.
Hold on a
just
sec. Anthony, hold on.
and talking to us.
Hold on.
Can
I just get a word in? So I just don't think he's confused. My prediction was that he'd start playing dumb. In other words, when he starts asking me whether or not he can come on the show, that's playing dumb. So I'm like, all right, well, is this how you're going to start and mean to carry on, i.e. playing dumb? Oh, well, I don't really understand. Oh, well, I'm just confused. Yeah, right. While you're setting up the experiment, while you're going to great effort spending hours and hours putting together videos and editing in music. No, you're not dumb. I know you're not. Third video, third criticism, I'm sick of it. You're just a bullshitter. Yeah, you're either pretending to be a flat earther, telling me you're on my side, literally in those words, same as Heath Carmody, and ultimately you're trying to support a calculator that omits perspective using side views and side view arguments. And I'm just tired of it. You know, Anthony's tired of it too.
Yeah, but further though, it is the expectation that if somebody comes out who claims to be a flat earther with something that's completely wrong, it is the expectation that we call that person out, because ballers, they regularly say to us, well, why didn't you call such and such a person out? Well, this is an occasion where we are calling you out and we're inviting you to join and talk about what your representations are in the video. And if it's all legit and above board, the audience will decide. And if you sound legit and genuine, then they make their own mind up. But the link's there, man. You've got it. Come on.
Yeah. For intellectual honesty.
Yeah, if you have no bad intentions, then it'll only serve to put your channel out there. So,
Well, if he comes on, let's get the Plain Truth to interview him.
I agree.
We'll get Plain Truth to be mediator.
Yeah.
Well,
that's fair enough.
So,
I'm pretty triggered. I know, Anthony, you're probably as triggered as I am, because I'm really annoyed with him. You know, because I leave the comments, I plug his channel, and then he ignores my criticism and says, there's no getting anything past you. It's like, this isn't a game, dickhead. This is me trying to find out what the truth is and you putting out bullshit. And it's frustrating. Can you address it? Does he address it? No, he comes out with another pile of bullshit. Second video, Anthony gets annoyed and cottons on. And he's like, look at this shit. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I've seen his last video and commented. I'm kind of giving up on him. And then third video comes out and you go, oh, right. So here we go again with yet more misrepresentations of the argument. And ultimately, you're saying it's a video about where it should include perspective in the title, yet you don't conclude that. You subtly say along the road that perspective's not needed and conclude that we are heisting the horizon when we're saying, nah, there's no bulge. There's nothing obscuring anything. And when something's not obscuring something else, we're told it's looming. It's a big fat sack of crap, and I'm sick of it.
Nathan,
you think that he's basically muddying the waters, that he's completely convoluting the entire thing, creating confusion on purpose. So people get lost.
Yes, intentionally muddying the waters.
That is very malicious. So
yes, I think so. That's why I'm, that's why I shouldn't be the one talking to him, because I've got my preconceptions, which may be wrong. So
that's worse than what ballers do, because they actually believe that if you are on purpose trying to create junk on the side of flat Earth to confuse people, that is straight out evil. That's much worse than being a ball believer.
Well, right.
Very evil.
That's what I was trying to intimate by his facade of being shocked at being treated this way. So it's like a big brother shoving the little brother, and then when mom looks at him, he goes, "What? What?" So he's either deliberately pretending to be shocked, or he is not. He doesn't get it. He's like, "Why are you guys talking to me this way? I'm just doing this." So it's either a complete facade or he's completely clueless, which I don't think he is, because his very first video was very impressive and represented what my first video was on angular curvature. So I was like, man, this guy's onto it. And I was excited about it because I thought he did a good job. So he's not stupid.
Well, acting stupid is a trait of psychopathy.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Well, yeah, I would say if he doesn't show up, I think that's a problem. I think if he doesn't show up, then it's just obvious then.
Acting stupid is a psychopathic trait, and it's also a sign that you are on purpose trying to deceive and convolute.
Let's not jump to conclusions about psychopathy for certain. Nobody's labelling anyone a psychopathy. I'm just not going to allow that. Look, just playing dumb doesn't make you a
Just
psycho.
saying that is an aspect of it. So
Maybe, but it's a totally unrelated subject. All we're talking about is a couple of videos that basically misrepresent our argument, and that's all I care about. The fact that the argument's been misrepresented badly on 3 separate occasions by the same person who's going, "Hey guys, I'm on your side." No, you're not.
Yeah, I'm on your side, but here, take a kick in the bollocks. Here's another one. Oh, here's a third one in about a week. And then wonders why he's getting called out, and why he thinks that maybe we might be a little bit hostile. Well, you're invited onto the show and we'll be cordial, but there are problems and concessions need to be made. You have got things wrong, claiming that you're representing our side of the argument, and it's clearly not.
So, yeah, while we boot this troll out, those concessions aside, I mean, I think we've spent enough of the show going over some of the belief as a thief's arguments on account of the fact that other people seem to represent the same arguments. M. Scott Veach did the same as his very first disingenuous, misrepresentative argument, and that's why I'm sort of paying a bit more attention when other people do the same arguments. So presumably it's not because they're coercing with each other, it's simply because this is like a thought process or a cognitive process that will just happen in more than one person. So it's unfortunate for you if you are genuine and you're, genuinely startled that we would be shocked at your misrepresentations of the argument. Well, then fair enough. I'm sure you can explain that away, and you'll appear as dumb as you say you are. But, I don't think that's going to be the case, and that's probably why you're avoiding coming on. Anyway, the point is that the concessions from some unknown flat earther who I really couldn't give that much of a toss about on the whole, is only useful because his arguments are reasonably well put together in the misrepresenting way that others will do the same. But yeah. I'm more concerned with the people who have literally come on the show to date, one of which is Belief as a Thief. He assures me he's been on, although I don't remember him, that have come on, people like Gem Panda, people like The Rumpus, any of these guys further to the show, Paper Explanator, Red Rhetoric, that have used these curve calculators and applied them incorrectly. All of these guys are the ones that I want concessions from. They are wrong. They have applied a calculator that only accounts for things that are being built. It would only be useful to an engineer as opposed to a camera taking a picture of something inclusive of perspective. So for every single one of you idiots out there that has got this wrong, you need to start coming on and making concessions. You've got it wrong. We know you've got it wrong. Nobody's going to ever deny that your calculator omits perspective, because it absolutely unequivocally does, and you've all taken absolute sizes, and absolute sizes are completely meaningless in a world of perspective. So with that, those concession demands, I think I'll say first and foremost a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the live panel for making this debate possible, and of course a massive thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully sharing this debate. If you hated the show, Belief is a Thief, then you know exactly what to do. But if you like the show, maybe consider sharing it with a friend or subscribing if you have not done so already. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!